John Warren, publisher of the San Diego Voice and Viewpoint newspaper, coming to you once again with our program from the desk of the editor. The San Diego Voice and Viewpoint, as you know, is San Diego's oldest adjudicated African American publication, and I believe it's only at this point. We are in 89 zip codes, 17 cities, the unincorporated areas of the county. We are available online and encourage you to visit our website. We also have an app, Voice and Viewpoint, which you can download in Google or Apple Store. Our paper is available by mail. It's available in single copy, availability in newsstands and in retail outlets. And so we are excited about the fact that we are the ones that say we are the voice of San Diego, the real voice, for we say a people without a voice cannot be heard. We are excited to be with our partner in all of this, Dr. Leonard Thompson III. Tonight we're going to have an open mic approach to the program, and you will be able to either call in if you wish, 858-251-6111, or you may join us online at godradio1.com. We are streaming on Facebook, Dr. Thompson, so
Yes.
take over there.
Well, Dr. Warren, I do have to say, although it's the evening time, I'm so hungry. I'm hungry for information. I'm hungry for knowledge, but I'm also hungry for these biscuits, grits, and politics.
Yes.
So I just want to start off the show because things are shaping up for the first one on September 19th. We're doing food tasting on this Friday. People are being prepped for the event. Let's just talk a little bit about this and really the direction we would love for this to go on this national format that we're creating.
Well, we are excited. This is an age in which there are podcasts and people are flocking to social media. It's a time when our publications, many are in transition, though we still do print. We are building a digital footprint in terms of expanding our reach. And we are excited that because of technology, Voice and Viewpoint is not just here in San Diego. We are reach worldwide. We have people that come to us from across the country and around the world. And people are interested in what we do in San Diego. And I think that is a blessing in and of itself because we are capable of being trendsetters and with all the issues that are in front of us. And so we're excited about that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited about it. It's work, but the format that we have is a good format. It's food. We're feeding the body and the soul at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pleasant morning atmosphere among friends. It's open to everybody who wants to come and participate. We're expecting a minimum of 100 people, and once we reach that number, as you indicated, then we can stream the service, but we're not going to stream the event until then. 2 hours and, $20. I don't know where you can get what we're offering for $20.
Well, it's really for me, that those are back in the 1990s and early 2000 prices,
Right.
and I don't think that that should be a detour for anybody. Mainly because of the fact is that this is going to be a forum that so many things are going to take place, so many decisions will be made, so many people will be exposed to just right information, have an open discussion. And also be able to ask key questions. And so we have seen many forums over my lifetime that have started, and some have very much longevity. This is another opportunity for us to get another forum that will have longevity, that we will be able to ask pertinent questions. But more than anything else, I think that it is an opportunity for us to network together, to come together. And you know how they say, not forsaking ourselves, coming together, breaking bread together. And so one of the things that I know you're very big on is quality of food, quality of service, and being able to have someone like a Nellie's Kitchen, Black-owned, being able to have a Mandate Project, Impact Mandate Records, and GOD Radio, all Black-owned, and then having the signature Voice and Viewpoint, all Black-owned. We're literally, and although this is not a Black forum, we're literally impacting community. So as a whole, this breakfast, this biscuits, grits, and politics will employ probably about 75 people from our community and literally then broadcast it out around the nation. Now, some people might say, well, how can San Diego be trendsetters? Well, what people need to understand is San Diego is a test city. When they look at our geographical makeup and everything else of that nature, many times they will come and test things out here. I remember with the African American male program with San Diego Unified School District.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there were programs all over the country.
Right.
But one of the things that they could say about our program is almost 39 other school districts modeled their program after our program because we were the only program in the nation that was not legally sued for doing it. And it was about the structure. So I always tell people that it's about watering your grass right where you're at and value what you have in your city. And then where there is lack, that is opportunity for creation.
Well, you're so right, because when you look at even our program, Black Men and Women United, but Black Men United started in San Diego. And when you Google it, you can find chapters in other cities, but it was all modeled after here.
Yeah.
And in our initial launch, we did 5 years where we met every Saturday for 5 years without missing a day. And we're involved in walking in the community and just doing a number of things. And people came out and got involved in terms of support. So you're right, we are a trendsetter, and we're excited. I mean, Gold Coast, we did that. We brought people here who wouldn't have been coming to California in the first place, because it was back during the time when we had all of the restrictions taking place in terms of propositions that were in effect. But the chamber, the Black Chamber, and, when people talk about the things like the activities that take place today, what we do on the Midway, and what other groups do, the Holiday Bowl, doing the basketball game on a naval carrier, we did that first on the Kitty Hawk. We brought drumline here. So we're still in a position to do some first, and we want to be first in really bringing together a diverse community, because there's so many people in San Diego. The African American community is diverse. Then we have the multiplicity of African communities that are here that we try to interact with. And then we have other people are here, the AAPI and the Latino community. And so we are a collective collage, if you will, of people here. And this breakfast is an opportunity for us to really expand that. So we want to mention that. But we're not going to stay on that item. We got other things. I want to talk very much about what's happening this Saturday, August 26th.
Okay.
August 26th will be the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington. And that March on Washington, which took place then, is so significant. Some people only want us to remember it from the standpoint of Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech, but there was more to it than that. And so, and I know there was more to it because I was there throughout that day, the whole thing. So 60 years ago, I was on the mall. I got as close to the Lincoln Memorial as I could, and I climbed a tree, and it was a cool, warm spot when everybody else around me was down on the ground in the heat and everything. And one of the unique things about that march was to show you how respectful our people were. All those people who came, and you see the pictures, how they were dressed, and I always talk about that. They dressed in, black folks dressed in their Sunday go-to-meeting clothes to come there, and they came by bus, by car, some walked, some even came by, horse and buggy, horse and wagon to be there. And if you look at that picture, though, you'll see that they are not in the reflection pool. They were respectful of the reflection pool. They were all around the pool, but they weren't in it. And if you look at subsequent demonstrations in Washington, people were all out in the reflection pool and all over the place. When you look at the Million Man March, it was another example of people being respectful of where they were. At the end of that march with 1 million people on the mall, when they left that mall, you could not find a piece of trash on the ground anyplace. And that's unheard of. I mean, no one did trash. They picked up, they moved their trash and everything. They were just respectful of where they were. And we've always been respectful of the institutions and what government is supposed to represent. My big concern about this weekend is, yeah, there are a number of organizations, according to Dr. Sharpton, Reverend Sharpton, that are going to be there, and everybody is involved. API, LTQB, and all of these other groups are involved in it. And when they were involved before, it wasn't a question of people having to have their labels identified. They were there because they weren't there just for Dr. King. They were there with Dr. King. And the real thrust of that message was that America had given us insufficient fund check, a check that had been returned insufficient funds. And how was it insufficient? It didn't give the equality and all that was promised on the 13th and the 14th Amendment. It didn't give us the what we were supposed to have in terms of education, even though we'd already had Brown versus Board and all these other decisions. And so these are things that we got generations now that this is just a photo flash in terms of them. They don't remember it, and so many who were there are gone. There's just very few of us left. And this is not about a commemoration, as Reverend Sharpton said, and I agree. It's about a continuation. And so I want us to pay attention to what's going to happen this weekend. And August 26th is also significant to my family because if my mother were alive, it would be her 96th birthday. And so it's always been a very special day to us. But we just want us to not let this day pass and be nonchalant about it just because we're here in California and they're on the East Coast. And so it would be nice to hear some comment or feedback if as we go this evening, if there's some thoughts about it, or if you just never thought about it at all and you got questions, then we can answer those as well.
Amen. And one of the things about it, Dr. Warren, is that as we begin to look at history, we have to just be very mindful that a lot of times people are not spending time with history. Now, I know that, they talked about the Alabama brawl, but I also say that, don't start singing Lift Every Voice and Sing and using all the other words that you want to add on it. That should always be honored. You know what I'm saying? And I know that it's funny and things of that nature, but at the end of the day, we don't want our kids to know that song more, the funny rendition more than the real rendition. And so as we began to look at historical moments throughout our history, we talk about the March on Washington, but 98% of the people could not tell you 4 other speakers that spoke besides Martin Luther King.
No, you're right. Or the fact that John Lewis was the last speaker, or that what was called the Big Six put it together. The Big Six at the time, the Urban League, the NAACP, CORE, and all of these groups that came together, the planning of the march, it wasn't a simple thing. There were many conflicts and battles among the people in the group. I remember at the time I had just started working for Adam Clayton Powell, and he had issues with the fact that he had been given a role in the march when he considered himself the dean of the movement because from his standpoint, he was in Congress fighting alone when King and others were still in school. And so we had all of these issues were very real in terms of people not only concerned about the struggle or who was going to be in touch with the White House, but at the same time jockeying for recognition and for position. There were big issues with Jim Farmer, with CORE. I mean, they were, people thought some of it was too radical, and it's Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and all of these groups that are involved that to many people today are just titles. But they were things that people may sacrifice to make work. They didn't have a budget from Congress to do what they were doing. They couldn't stay in hotels in those days when they were traveling in the struggle. So that was before we got the Heart of Atlanta v. Motel and Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, Title V of the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, really, Civil Rights Act that dealt with public accommodations. And so the stuff we take for granted, we can just travel anywhere and check into a hotel. We couldn't do that. If you want to, we can rent a car. We can get on a plane, and people weren't even flying on planes in those days. People were still taking train in terms of where they were going.
Exactly.
And so all of these things, we must not forget where we come from, because if we do that, then we have no idea where we're going.
Yeah, and that's just so important that as we begin to move forward, I think that we have to look at going back to Saturday schools where we were actually bringing our young people together and sharing the history and sharing the need for us to come together, and taking the time out to really, really, really impress upon them the importance of reading and Dr. Warren, we might need to put together in the newspaper like 10 of the top books that every African American young woman should read, every young man should read, and collectively, because there are certain literary works that I believe that every young person should read. Now, for me, there are a couple of books that when I got to college, like 1983, that is so real to me today. With Big Brother watching everything.
Oh, 1984.
At 1984, I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay.
1984.
Right.
And the miseducation of the Negro.
Yes. Yes.
The ISIS papers.
Yes. Yes.
There's just some key readings that if we don't share with our young people, they'll never know exists.
Well, that's why there's such a push in the country today by the conservative, radical, right-wing, radical element to eliminate books that are available that people should be reading. It's just like a few weeks ago when I did the editorial about Justice Thomas, it being an insult to call him Uncle Tom. Well, you got a lot of people that they never heard of Harriet Beecher Stowe or Under Uncle Tom's Cabin, or what it did to ignite a fire in terms of the movement. We don't have people looking at that. And even more recently, we got the works of Du Bois and Frederick Douglass. We mention Douglass, we drop his name, but how many of us have really looked at the man in terms of what he did and how he did it against the odds? And this is the key for us today. We put so much emphasis on the hindrances that are put in front of us rather than on getting around the hindrances. When I was a youngster with Adam Clayton Powell, he'd bring the staff together with the issue that needed to be resolved, and he would give an opportunity for everybody to say why they thought it couldn't be done. And usually as they were given the reason, well, we can't do it because of this, we can't do that, he would just turn his chair around and blow smoke up in the air. When he finished, he would turn back around and say, okay, you finished? And he said, now we're going to do it. So there's no such thing as we can't get it done. It's a question of how.
It's about how.
And we putting so much emphasis today on permission, on the money, or they didn't give us a grant for this and we didn't get dollars for that. Well, I mean, we got more technology and tools available to us than the humanity's ever had in its lifetime. All we have to do is apply ourselves to it.
Yeah, and one of the things about it, I just pulled up a book that I think a lot of young people need to read, and that's The Spook Who Sat by the Door.
Oh, yes.
You know what I'm saying?
What's his name?
Yeah,
Greeley.
Sam Greenlee, yeah.
Sam Greenlee, yes. Very important book in terms of it, because it, and if we're going to read that book, one of the books that I would put on the reading list along with that was Siege. And not the movie that Denzel and them did, because that movie distorted the real book. And when Siege came out, it was such a powerful book that for some reason you couldn't find copies of it in the stores. And the copy that I bought, you know where I found my copy of Siege?
Where?
I found it in a bookstore in Mexico City.
Wow.
Where I was able to pick up one. Okay? And I still have a copy today because it's such a powerful book that is fictional, but it's so important about what happened. And part of Siege was actually implemented. Now, without taking a lot of time, Siege was about a group of blacks who were Vietnam War vets, and they came together and they used their skills because they wanted to make a statement. And the siege was the idea of taking over New York City. They had already infiltrated the transit system, the utilities, and all of these elements. and at the appointed time, they were to shut the city down and hold it hostage. Well, something similar to that happened in D.C., where a radical group of Muslims, they took over the B'nai B'rith, the Jewish building, they took over City Hall, they took over another place, and they did it all at the same time, and they wouldn't let go until someone got in touch with the Ayatollah, the embassy. In those days, I remember Marion Barry got shot in the behind during the takeover, and I made the point that the reason they shot him in the butt, he was probably running. But, these stories are important because no one would have believed that anybody would be radical enough to do that. Like no one would have believed January 6th.
Yeah.
And we can't wait until these crazy things happen.
And the funny thing about it, and this is the thing that really shocks people, but many times those radical movements are literally reading the books that we're saying that everybody should read.
Yep.
And everything. So they're doing their study. They're looking at so many ways of getting control. And I want people to understand that even in the sense when they said the CIA flooded our communities with drugs, right?
Oh, yeah.
Now they're convincing you all that this free weed thing is not another thing of flooding the community with a drug that they can condemn you for later down the road.
Yeah, cannabis is a part of the thing, you know. And, well, we were the first paper, the first black paper to deal with what happened with the CIA Contra situation when Gary Webb released all of that through San Jose Press. And I remember that Jerry got in touch with them and they gave us permission for, I think it was $10 to reprint all of that information. And we downloaded all of this stuff and then went on the CIA website and took their logo and put it on the front page of the paper along with the story. And we ended up being very involved in that with Freeway Ricky Ross, who was at the time later was convicted of all of this and fought a battle and got all of his stuff overturned and got out. So the history is there, and we don't hear discussion about any of this stuff today. Everybody is now, John Q. Esquire, and they all dressed up with their little briefcase and their little iPhone, and they're just running around being so important, and they don't want to hear about the struggle, and they don't want to spend time working on the struggle, but yet.
Yeah, and what I would say is that when we started off the whole thing and I said, I'm so hungry, there are so many of our young people today that are very much hungry, and they're very much in search of information. And this is the exciting thing that we have, I think, in this season, is to begin to put things out with the challenging mark of, here's books we're recommending you to read. Malcolm X, and this is how I vision it. We'll have the top 10 books. We'll put something out every quarter or something, and we'll have it made available to all the libraries and make sure that they can carry those books for those that don't want to buy the books. They're going to be, we could say, it's an ebook, it's a this, it's a that, where you can get the book. And I think that it's just really, truly, there is a segment of our society, and now y'all almost say this again, we make up, about 5% of San Diego?
Yeah,
there is a segment of our society that really, truly has a hunger for this. But here's the situation, that there are more people that don't look like us that will eat more. And they will read more, and they will study more, because they know that knowledge is power, and if they can get that knowledge, they're still one step ahead.
Yeah, and it's not that it's tucked away or buried someplace. I remember we made special efforts at the Voice and Viewpoint one week to show the Battle of Algiers, because there's so much involved in that in terms of struggle. But we don't want to talk about being revolutionary anymore. And then it's kind of hard because being revolutionary has been equated with being radical. And being a terrorist and being all those things. And yet our struggle, we made progress because we were challenging the system. And so, but we need to get back to being informed so we can do it. Solomon says that as you read in Ecclesiastes, he makes it very clear. He says, vanity, vanity, all is vanity. There's nothing new under the sun. And all we see is a change of characters, but the situation's the same. the National Archives in Washington has on written in big letters across there that the past is prologue. And so, but we got to want people. They got to want to know. They got to want to hear. And we've come so far in San Diego that now we're losing what we did here. You know, we have people invoking the name of folks like George Stevens without really understanding who Reverend Stevens was or what he stood for, or what he did. And in all our martyrs, the people that we hold up, it doesn't mean that they were perfect or they walked on water or whatever. They had issues like we all have issues. The key is that the issues were overcome because of what the struggle was and what people were trying to get done.
Yeah, and you know, and I always look at George Stevens, you know, icon in our community. But you know, the funny thing is, you know what I love is to hear about the us days. You know what I'm saying? In the El Cortez Hotel.
Yeah.
You know, those kind of things. I made a statement way back in the day. I said, whoever becomes city council person and cleans up these abandoned apartment buildings will be forever loved in the community. The first day of office, he got in that bulldozer and knocked that building down. I said, oh, he just solidified himself forever in the hearts of the community because they saw things being done. And that's the thing that we want to be about: actual progress, actual doing, not just talking about doing or look like we're doing, but let's literally get in there and do. And watch this, Dr. Warren. The one thing is you the press, you know what I'm saying? We're in media. But the one thing I love about it is that we don't sit up there and put ourselves on the front cover of every day of everything that we do, because we understand that it's that behind the scenes negotiation, behind the scenes advocacy that makes a difference. And when you have a powerful black newspaper with powerful editors and publishers, it makes a difference in your community, because you can get to the mayor or the governor or the president or whatever on behalf of your city. And that's the thing that we're doing now, is truly creating a structure of power brokers within our community even more so. Here's the thing, what you said, back in the day, you know, you had the NAACP, you had the Urban League, everything, and we said that it had, you know, that we are the salt of the earth. But if the salt loses its savor, where will it be salted? Yeah. So we have to continue to keep us salted. We need to be salty so that we can add flavor and bring about change. And that's what we're pushing in this season, not only with our young people, but with every organization. Get back your savor.
Well, see, the saltiness comes into play when we start looking beyond ourselves to what we can do for others. I mean, if you think back to the people who were the founders of the local chapters of the Urban League or the NAACP. You know, I remember when I first came to San Diego with my late wife, and NAACP had that little office down on Imperial, and she would be there in the evening with the kids working hard on getting stuff out and doing things. And so many of the men that became black judges was a result of the leverage of the effort that was put forth on behalf of someone other than themselves, you know. That was important. The Urban League was on Market Street, and it was involved, and people knew they could walk in and they could get some help in terms of issues. That part is gone. I mean, today the Urban League is over on Fairmont and University, and is in a high rise, and you got to pay to park and all kinds of stuff. And the NAACP is, you know, we had a commitment in terms of the works of Francine Maxwell, and then when it did well in terms of money and programs, here we come to take over. And the organizations are being corroded from within. They're coming down from the inside, and I'm not really afraid to speak up about it. And so the enemy benefits when we fight against each other. That's the issue. And we just seem to, we've lost the love for one another, and we've taken every disagreement as a personal insult, rather than if we have a problem, let's state the problem and see how we can go forth to overcome it.
And I would say, you know, with the new leadership of the Urban League and some of the things that are taking place, I'm seeing a lot of great work coming out of that organization. But then I go to the San Diego NAACP, and their website is down. You know what I'm saying? Everything that you can do is not there, and you begin to ask the question, well, under the leadership of Francine Maxwell, it was thriving and growing and had over 1,000 members. I mean, just really moving forth. And then all of a sudden we hit this stalemate. And recently I found out they're still in receivership.
Oh, yeah.
So some year and a half more later, this transition was supposed to bring about a change, but yet and still, and they're still having a problem with keeping people working. And they're now this a missing link that you don't even see when there comes a call for we need to have help. It's every place else but.
Well, you know, before the pandemic, the National NAACP entered into a memorandum of agreement or understanding with the National Newspaper Publishers Association, because it's the black press, and they're in our 196th year. We're the ones who publicized all of their notices and press releases and report cards and the things that they did. But they have a leadership problem. Under Derek Johnson, they got some 50 entities that are suspended or in trouble or having problems and fighting. And so we know when we look back to the civil rights movement that a lot of this is from outside forces infiltrating with their agenda. It's amazing how much the FBI did in terms of the movement, how they were behind the killing of people like Fred Hampton and the brothers that were wiped out with informers and all of these kinds of things that were going on. All of that's not over. Like I said in the editorial this week, the enemy just changed clothes. They just took off the sheet and the hood and they put on the John Q. Esquire clothing and briefcase and continue the agenda in a different outfit.
And one of the things, I look at Rod Shelton, Judge Rod Shelton, who we all played an instrumental role of getting him in that judgeship and supporting him. But when he got there, he began to make this major inroads to make sure that things changed.
Yes.
And that's the thing that we're saying. Once you get in, don't just rest on your laurels. Don't just collect titles, but do something and make it better for the next generation that's going to come after you.
Well, see, that's what made, and again, folks, that those who are listening or want to chime in, our number is 858-251-6111. This is open mic. And while you might not speak, if you got a comment, we'll read it, we'll put it on, we'll respond to it. But when you mention people getting in and making change, my mind goes back again to the spook who sat by the door and how he knew that they took him in, to the CIA just to show there was something black, but he wasn't content with that. He just took all that training that they gave him and he went out and put it to work on behalf of the movement. Uncle Tom, he wasn't a person who was all of the handkerchief head, the Negro that they want to present him to be, but he knew that in terms of the times in which he lived, he had to maintain a certain image, while on the other hand, he was engaged in sacrifice and helping other people. And I think there's no greater joy than being of help to someone other than yourself. And a lot of us don't want to make that step. And a lot of it is because we really abandoned the church. The church was where we were motivated. The church is where we were learning to be about service because that was Christ's position, that he came to serve, not to be served. As he told the disciples, if I can't wash your feet, then I have no place in the kingdom. And, Peter said, well, don't just do my feet, wash me all over.
Yeah.
So we need to be mindful of the opportunities that we have.
Well, and I would like to say, at some point, the community has abandoned the church. But I will say at another point, the church has abandoned the community. Because the portion that, when we talk about Jesus, he was everything to everybody.
Yes, he was.
You know what I'm saying? So he knew how to adjust. If he was down there with the winos, he knew how to adjust. He didn't have to sip the wine. And he had to go down and get drunk.
He was the man for all seasons.
Exactly.
Yes. And the only other person that we have in the scripture try to do that was Paul. When Paul said, I'll be whatever I need to be to get the message across, And so he's a Jew to the Jew and a Roman to the Romans and the whole bit, and he just used everything that he was. And today we all have so much that we could use, that we could put to work, but we have to bring commitment, and commitment involves making a sacrifice beyond the point of your personal convenience. See, that's the key. Most of us don't want to be inconvenienced. We have gotten spoiled with our comfort level. It looks cloudy outside. Well, I'm not going to church today. It looks like it might rain. Well, I'm not going to volunteer to go over here or over there. And one of the reasons over the past 30 years that I've not taken volunteers at the Voice and Viewpoint is because they still have to bring a level of commitment to the whole thing. You know, we had an experience not long ago where we were at a hospital in La Jolla, and the volunteers there, you know, they wear the little white pants and the candy striped shirts and everything. And so these sharp white shoes, we had this little white guy that was taking us over for a procedure that we had to do. So we were talking to him, and so I says to him, I says, well, how long have you been here? Because he looked like he might have been in his 80s, but he was still pep in his step. And he says, oh, I've been here like 25 years or something doing what he does. And I said, wow. And then he says something so funny, so I still laugh at it. And he looks up at us, he stopped, and he says, they told me I had to do it until I get it right. But he was committed, you see. And if we got to be committed beyond what's convenient.
Yeah.
Okay? And some of us can't be committed even on Zoom. You know, we can't get up and get there, and the enemy knows which buttons. The enemy knows when we're going to be tranquilized and how much it takes to put us to sleep, and who to give a grant to over here, a few dollars over there, and who to pet and stroke. As long as they're doing that, you're going to get some press, but you're not going to have any substance and get anything really done.
Yeah, and I always tell people this is that, and be able to do it without the title, without the pomp and circumstance. You know, I remember as a young person, 12 years old, working construction. And when I went to work construction, I had on construction clothes.
Yes.
When I went to do board meeting stuff, I had on board meeting clothes.
Right.
And the one thing I remember my uncle, the late Bishop Blake Sr., saying to me is, he said, look, he said, if you see somebody in a suit all the time, they're not doing the true work of the community, because sometimes you're gonna have to cut somebody's grass.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're gonna have to get a little dirty, you know. So to be acceptable and to be able to be seen, people were like saying, meet us right where we're at. You know, I used to laugh because when I married my wife, she said, you only had 2 pair of jeans. You know what I'm saying? Well, in my profession, I was always in suits and ties.
Right.
You know, now they look at me and they say, you always in jeans and button down. You know, as we transition in the different professions that we do, you know, just like you, Dr. Warren, you can put on a suit and a tie. You
I
can put
got
on a
some, but I don't like.
tuxedo.
I always tell people, if you see me in a suit and tie, it's because I'm getting a check. I just, you know, I wore one for so many years in politics and Congress and all those things that I'm very comfortable with the way I move. But when you were speaking, you reminded me of Rudyard Kipling. And when Kipling says, and what does it mean to be a man, my son, but to walk among kings and not lose the common touch.
Yeah.
And so many of us don't know how to do that. You know, if we're walking with kings, we are pretending because we're uncomfortable being there. And some of us have so isolated ourselves that we don't even know what the common touch is.
Yeah.
We shouldn't walk around being afraid of each other. You got to be able to communicate with people and wherever you are. You know, like you said, Jesus was able to do that. One of the keys to doing that is to be for real. If you're for real, people will know that you're for real.
Yeah.
You might not even speak the same language, but they will respond to you in terms of being for real.
And when you're a part of the community, that's what you're a part of. You are a part of the community. When you come in, it's not always you get up to let me sit down. You know, if a senior comes in as a younger person, and I'm 58 years old, but if a senior comes in, it is behooving of me to give up my seat for that senior out of just respect. You know, not because, you know, and I might not even know them, but because of respect of who they are as an elder in our community, we give space to them. It doesn't matter what title I carry.
Well, you know, that is so true. And, you know, some months ago, the latter part of last year, when I was having all kinds of back issues and it was difficult, I was walking with a cane. And I can remember many times, especially in the airport, I had difficulty getting up. And a stranger would come over and say, "Sir, can I help you? Can I help you up?" And people still have humanity. And we just have to exercise it. We don't have the respect for the elders that we should have, you know? And I think that's important.
Yeah.
Because they didn't get old by accident. My grandfather used to tell me, and I never forgotten this. He said, "Old people don't get old being stupid." So you can learn a lot if you pay attention.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what we want to do.
One of the things I wanted to just do a quick talk on is the preparation for Hillary. You know, coming to San Diego. I actually thought that the prep was amazing.
It was.
I was very pleased with the information that was given out, and everybody said a hurricane's coming. I said, no, the Saints had already prayed. It's going to be a tropical storm.
Yeah.
And they're like, but the hurricane, and there was a portion of people that I think were excited. My granddaughter, she was on the phone with her grandmother, and she said, well, Grandma, I done seen a couple of lightnings and everything, but where's the action? and she said, baby, we done prayed that action away.
Yeah.
What you see is a good little rainstorm,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, you know, it's so important that you say that because we had people calling us from all over the country. How are we here? Then we had that 5.6 earthquake up there, and people were worried. And here in the rural areas there was flooding and there were issues that people had. But you know, some of us knew it wasn't going to happen because when that storm reaches the cooler waters up here, it dissipates, which it did. But more than the hurricane, my heart and mind is still on Maui.
Yeah.
You know? And so, I mean, we don't have any problems here. Even if it had rained even more, I was concerned that the rain was going to help put out some of the fires that are burning. But Maui, you know, it's still hard to look and see a whole community gone. You know, 1,000 people still missing. And they will never find most of them because the intensity of the flames cremated most of those folks in the midst of it. People died sitting in their cars, you know, not just smoke inhalation like the fires that we had here back in 2004 and 5, but these people actually burned up in their cars. And we remember when we had the fires here, there were people that were trying to get away from the casinos out there in East County, and the rural areas. The rubber melted on the tires of the cars in terms of how bad the flames were. We have been spared, and we have been so blessed. And I'm proud of the extent to which relief efforts have organized here and send resources there. But we can't just do these communities for a moment. I'm still remembering the communities in Tennessee that were wiped out with the storm. You know, and so many times in the black communities in particular, we are hit harder because we don't always have the homeowners insurance or the businesses. And if our business is gone, our little store on the corner, then our income is gone. You know, and a couple of checks is not going to do that. So we just have to start being more circumspect in terms of how blessed we are. And when we start looking at what we can do to help others, then we're going to help ourselves even more.
Yeah, and you know, and one of the things about it is that, you know, I was glad to see that we didn't lose a ton of our homeless population,
Right.
Because they were in the storm drain area. A lot of work that was done, a lot of commanding the crews to get out there, clean the storm drains, find safe places for them, and literally there was just a great effort, and I felt like we didn't just let it happen and as it bypassed, but there was a structure in place. And even in not knowing if the school buildings were going to be sound, they said, okay, for San Diego Unified and some other districts, they basically said we're going to start the school year one day short so we can go check out, make sure that we don't have a whole bunch of leaks and everything else.
And I think that's important because, you know, if you check with San Diego County Board of Education, there are 40-some school districts in San Diego County. A lot of those rural places, they were hard hit, you know, flash flooding and a whole number of issues. The wind is different and everything. We're kind of in a bubble here.
Yeah.
You know? we're in an unrealistic bubble in the city of San Diego. Sometimes some of us need to get out into where the real people live and in the rest of the area and just see how fortunate we are, which is so significant.
Well,
So
we mentioned school starting this week for the largest school district in San Diego. Um, are they prepared? There's been reports coming out that there's still the problems with undue suspensions and discrimination on how they're doing suspensions, not in general Santa Unified, but just in general. Um, um, do we really go to see that we're going to see a real change in this year under a new administration, because they brought in pretty much all of the area superintendents have been shifted out and new ones are in except for maybe one. You know what I'm saying? Different people are in different positions. Do we really feel that we're going to see a change? The Board of Education is supposedly moving away from off of University and Park and Normal Street and moving up to right off of Balboa.
are they still making that move?
Well,
Yeah, they bought the old was it the old Jack in the Box?
Yeah, Jack in the Box
yeah.
headquarters, the food
Right.
makers. And according to people, the Jack is still up in there, and the statue and everything else, and they're slowly but surely moving people over there. I've heard that they have a plan of selling that property and making it affordable housing for teachers.
What the normal street
Yeah,
property?
the normal street property.
Well, that's been very successfully done in other cities. Washington, D.C. is a great example of how surplus school buildings have been converted into housing,
Yeah.
mainly for seniors, and it's done it very well. And so that could be the case. I think that the key to what we're looking at is we've got to return to being involved. We got to return to going to board meetings. We still have mental health issues for our students. It's a question of how many counselors do we have in terms of helping the kids, and we've got to understand that people who were supposed to be in their greatest rest period as seniors, many have been pulled back in as grandparents taking care of kids. And so that puts us back into the mode of being concerned beyond the fact that our own kids are grown and have moved on. And so we really need to see how we can be supportive. I still think we need to find a way to challenge our churches more. I think we can return to the Saturday classes that you mentioned. We have enough retired, resources out there to get involved to make that happen. I'm still thinking of programs we had like Rite of Passage in terms of working with the young men, or, back in the day, people like Sister Salur, I can't think of her name now, though, used to be a part of Bronze Ebony Beauty Salon, and they had programs for young ladies in terms of etiquette, and protocol, and all these kind of things that seem to have gone away. And we still need to, we're commanded in the scripture to be mindful of the generations that come behind us. So I think there's a lot to do. And there's some people who are isolated because of the pandemic, and they're lonely, and mental health challenges are up. And my advice is get involved beyond yourself. Find something to do. We got nursing homes. We got people who don't have anybody to come see them. We need to visit with those folks. So we need to get involved.
Yeah, and I always tell people, if you want to build your church, build a very, very strong youth department. And the churches, you don't have to look far for the young people, because normally churches are around schools. And if you just go to that local school and just begin to offer a service, they will then be like, oh, well, the pastor came over, or this church came over, and then what will happen? You have a family day, and say, I'm inviting you all out. Even if you got 10%, it's going to be more than you had.
Well, not only the churches, the libraries, because the other community is involved. The LGBTQ is going into the libraries and drag reading to the kids, and in so many instances, it's easier to have an LGBTQ club than it is a Bible club on a school campus. And in Black Men and Women United, not only are we involved as we did with Bell Middle School, we've gotten involved with Porter. We're encouraging people when we meet each week to go to a local school and put some time in. Let the kids see, especially the men. We need them to see the black male role models, because there are not enough black male teachers in the system. And so there's a lot that we can do if we just start looking at the need beyond our own personal recognition for what we are about to do.
Yeah, and shout out to Tony McElroy, retired captain.
Captain, yes.
From the San Diego PD. Him and other retired officers are now coming together so that they can start making impact with our young people, so that they can build those relationships. Like he had said at Black Men and Women United, that back in the day, most of us lived in the communities that we worked in.
Right.
And so we literally had relationships, and we understood how the community worked. But people have moved away and moved to Temecula and Menifee and all those other places. But they still work here and they serve here.
Yeah.
And so there's a disconnect. And so the key thing I think that we're saying overall, reconnect to your communities that you serve and that you're a part of. Reconnect to the San Diego Voice and Viewpoint, which will connect you to the community. Reconnect to GOD Radio. We will keep you informed, and we will all continue to work together. And then start building a network of businesses and people that we literally are serving collectively together, because we're better together. We're better together. We're stronger together. And then when there becomes a time where we have to challenge a status quo, they're not challenging just one organization.
Well, on that note, we still have food distribution centers within the community. Those places still need volunteers to help prepare the packages and to pass out the foods. Those are important things to get done. And we have health issues in the community. And we have people that, it's still time for vaccinations and information. We got the screening that's done on a regular basis with programs with people like Dr. Afala or Jira providers, people who are out there seeking to serve. And we want to remind people, as Dr. Robinson, in our residence physician on Black Men and Women United, lets folks know that the pandemic is not over. The virus is shifting forms. The numbers are up again, and the government has moved away from the kind of support that needs to be there to be maintained. And so we need to stay the course and stay active and stay involved in terms of helping. And nothing cures loneliness more than finding a way to be of help to someone.
Exactly. And one of the things about it is that it makes your life complete.
Yes.
When you're able to sow seeds into other people and see them actually come to pass. And, I think of all the scholarships that the San Diego Voice and Viewpoint gave out over the many years. And now we see people that are doctors and lawyers and business people and owners. Those are the kind of things that the seeds that will come back to literally bless your life. I'm working on a project right now, and I reached out to a student, and I said, I know that this is your profession. What is the budget that you need? And he said, I don't care what the budget is. If I get to work with you and be in your presence, you can call, you don't even have to pay me this. I want to come just to hang with you. And that was a blessing.
Yes.
And I said, well, no, we don't do it that way. But it was a blessing because I see these young people doing amazing things, and you just want to celebrate them. But also you want to give them, I always tell people, you want to give the young people the keys to the car, but you sure do want to make sure they can drive.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of times you want to give it over, but the people get behind the wheel and they drive all crazy, and before you know it, they done crash the car. And I'm saying this as a whole, that everything that looks pretty and glitzy and everything else, don't let them crash the car. Because if they crash the car, and crashing, you might not only take their own life, but other people's life, because they did not know how to control a car. So I'm like saying, you don't give a kid a Ferrari when he's first learning. Give him a Pinto. At least they can control that better. But a Ferrari, it takes an experienced driver, because you do it wrong, you hit the wrong pedal, you in trouble.
Yeah. This is true. And also for those of us who are older, as you were talking, I remember we have to be mindful when people come to us for help of the fact that we are in a position to do so. Being an elder is not something that's done ceremoniously. You just wake up one day and you're in a position that someone else was in before you, but you got to remember to reach back. And it was a challenge for me, because it took me a long time to get used to the idea that, well, you're older and you got something that you can share, because my whole life has always been about helping others. So it's not a new thing for me. And I believe that I've been blessed in many ways because of that. But we have to help people with wisdom. We just can't throw it away. I mean, you got to screen who you're helping and what you're doing, or you can get ripped off, but we still have to do that.
And one of the things, Dr. Warren, what we found out is in our desire to help and to teach and everything else that nature, we could spend our whole entire day, every day, being made available to everybody and never get the work that we need to get done. And so that's
right.
why we tell people, come to Black Men and Women United. Come here. Come where we're gathering. And so we can do a lot with a little bit of time instead of a little with a lot of time.
And that's so true, because in the early days of the paper, we used to stop all day long to talk with people who came in and wanted to chat for a minute, stop by. They were at the barbershop or the cleaners or whatever. And then we noticed at the end of the day, when all the workers have gone home, we're there until midnight doing what we should have been doing when we were meeting with everyone. And we had to learn how to redistribute our time.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to do. We have to use our time wisely. All of us have to use it and not squander it. And so I think, again, this is one of those conversations we've enjoyed having, and we always want to hear from you. You can email us here at godradio1.com or send a comment to the Voice and Viewpoint. We like to put the comments both online and in print. As we do each week. The paper will be online tomorrow, this week's edition, in addition to being available in print copy. And, it helps when we hear from the community, because we want to address the entire community and continue to be the beacon that we've tried to be for the past 65 years.
And for Black Men and Women United's meeting, they meet every Tuesday via Zoom from about 8 to about 9:30. You would need to call the Voice and Viewpoint. This is what we call a safe place for African and African Americans to come together. And so you are automatically invited as an African American. If you are not an African American, you could maybe get on the agenda if you have something to talk. But this is a safe place for African and African American people to come together. So you can call the Voice and Viewpoint and give them your email, and that will afford you to get an email to let you into this, what we call safe space for African and African American leaders and community people to come together, ask questions, get an education. So the number at the Voice and Viewpoint is
619-266-2233. The young lady there that you will speak with is Jayla, Jayla. Jayla is responsible for maintaining. And we have to do this screening process. Otherwise, if we just put the Zoom out there, then we would be victims of all kinds of things happening. So it's not a racist scenario. We will invite you. If you're not African American and you have something of interest, we will invite you to come back and give you time to talk with us. But as Dr. Thompson said, it is a safe place, because so many times people share the kind of things that they would just want in the family around the table. And if we make it safe, we don't record the meetings, we don't make a record of the meetings, we don't have a nonprofit, we don't have a bank, we don't have budget. It's just a free flow interaction, sharing needs and seeing how we can be of service to one another.
Well, Dr. Warren, we have reached the end of our show today. I want to thank everybody for tuning in from the desk of the editor. We have a lot of great topics coming up very, very soon. And we want to encourage you, for all our listeners out there, if you have a topic that you would like to discuss and bring to the table, please email me at godradio1 at mandaterecords.com, godradio1 at mandaterecords.com, and say, hey, I got a topic I would love for you to discuss on From the Desk of the Editor. We will do our research and be able to get back to you and let you know that we give you a yay or nay, because some of your topics might not be appropriate for this station.
Yeah, we do have to screen it.
Dr. Warren, any final words?
No, we just wish you well. Be safe and be prayerful, and seek how you can be of help to others.
Y'all be blessed.